Happy Tuesday, my friendly friends in Friendville. Breaking news to report. Did you know what's destroying America? Adjectives. Yes, it's true. Words like cruel, rough, sharp, gentle, sleek, slippery. Sounds like last night in Hemmer's hot tub. Anyway, adjectives are bad, which is also an adjective. So how bad is bad? Sorry. Well, Dana Milbank, some old crank from the Washington Post, commissioned a report that counted adjectives in the coverage of our last two presidents. And he found that Joe is the target of way more negative words than the previous president, who you remember, the evil orange monster from Planet Hitler. So what's the proof? Milbank actually had a firm count adjectives and articles comparing what Biden received in the first 11 months of 2021 to Trump in the first 11 months of 2020. They called this sentiment analysis. The authorities did the same thing to my diary after I burned down that men's big and tall store. The conclusion, the media is meaner to Joe than Trump. Now, that makes about as much sense as a chicken in a thong. It's like me at a wet market selling bat nachos. No one should buy it. Still, according to the firm's VP, the media are serving as accessories to the murder of democracy, and those murder weapons are adjectives. So in short, a biased writer at a biased paper commissioned a biased firm to study media bias, and surprise, he thinks the media is biased against Joe Biden. How convenient. Here's Milbank regurgitating the data on CNN.
The last 4 months, however, Biden has been at where Donald Trump was or lower than where Donald Trump is in terms of media sentiment. I mean, it's not bias, it's the actual words we're using. So we are as negative as a collective media on Joe Biden, if not more so than we were to Donald Trump at a time when he was trying to overthrow democracy. And I think that's a tremendous indictment of our whole industry. You know, it's not foolproof, but it gives a pretty good number, and we never had such a number before.
Yes, they never had such a number before, because this is the first time you did it, and you were the one who commissioned it. What a circle of jerks. What? So, as usual, the media's lies are like Stelter's man boobs. They just keep getting bigger and bigger. And this analysis has more holes in it than the ceiling of the spare room that I rent out to college students. I'm dressing this thing up. It's obvious to anyone alive the past 5 years that the media's treatment of Trump was way worse, with or without adjectives. They are obsessed with Trump, and they still can't let him go. No one's asking Alec Baldwin to do a Biden impersonation, although no one's asking Alec anything unless they're behind bulletproof glass. Looks great, though. For example, only 19% of Biden's first 60 days have been negative. Impressive when you consider he was unconscious for 50 of them. Now, that ranked best among presidents of the last 3 decades. Trump's first 60 days received a 62% negative rating. The fact is, the press didn't just report on Trump, they led the resistance, covering every protest and every march. Trump was treated worse than Charlie Sheen at a blood bank. It's pretty good. But you should already know this, and if you don't, you're probably some drunk guy in underwear dancing on a bar counter. It's a nice try. Now, Milbank claims the media was very kind to Biden until August. Then something happened. What could it be?
Afghans scrambling to get out, clinging to the side of a U.S. military plane. Where is the president? You know, why isn't he communicating fulsomely to the American people?
They knew exactly what it took in order to accomplish this mission, and for some inexplicable reason, there was nothing but complacency and inaction, and in the end, ineptitude.
It is just a picture of desperation, of failure as well. Failure to protect our allies, failure to plan for this eventuality.
So that's what happened. Of course, Milbank sees the downturn as evil bias, when in reality, the media could no longer cover for Biden's wrinkled butt, since the public could see his incompetence with their own eyes. There was no spin between the Afghan disaster and the viewer. The implosion was right there for all to see. But what Milbank twists as media bias is a somber realization that the horse they backed broke its ankle going into the first turn and is too old to put out to stud. It used to be they could cover for Joe. Literally, they let him live in a basement like a millennial with a liberal arts degree while he was running for president. We only heard from him when Dr. Jill went down to do laundry. He was the first to campaign standing next to a washer, dryer, and a litter box. And then when that story about Hunter's laptop came out, they buried it faster than the guy in the trunk of Henry Hill's car. A Goodfellas reference. And speaking of Hunter, because no one really is, this week the White House flagged the art industry as a corrupt enterprise due to lack of transparency and unpredictable pricing, meaning that you could charge someone hundreds of thousands of dollars for crappy art and get away with it. So what does that sound like to you? Yeah, the White House is blasting art industry corruption as they allow Hunter to sell his artwork to anonymous buyers for $500,000. Why isn't that a story? Does it have too many adjectives? Sleazy, gross, infantile, coke-fueled? All of the above? But it's just another cover-up, just like all the others. And remember, the institutions that swayed the election actually bragged about it in Time magazine, as tech, the media, and other groups came together to drag old Joe across the finish line. That meant not reporting on the riots and the rising crime, denouncing any mention of the Hunter laptop or the big guy's links to China. I wonder what the president has to say.
Look, everybody knows the press is tough on me, all right? They certainly don't cozy up to me the way they did my predecessor, I'll tell you that. But we got a good team. We fight back. Ron Klain, bring the pain. Jen Psaki, circle backy. I know how to fight, all right? You come at me, I'll take you down. I fought in the 6-Day War with gold in my ear. That's real. And I give her credit. But without me, that would have lasted 7-8 days minimum. That's the truth. I'm serious. I'm not joking about that.
So, the media's realized that they married a corpse and it's starting to rot. But it's not just Joe's rotting, it's the media. No one is buying their BS anymore, not even the left. So like newlyweds returning from Barbados, Milbank realizes the fun part is done and reality sets in. So he creates new BS to paper over the old BS. But hey, maybe we need more soul searching.
I think we really need to do some soul searching and think about what it is we're delivering to people. And I think the media consumer may, should look at what we're saying with a grain of salt.
We do. Sorry, Dana. To do any soul searching, first you need a soul and the will to search it. The media's got neither. Or neither. Here he is! Welcome to tonight's guest. He's been on more film sets than cocaine and craft services. Actor, author of the book The Respondent, and founder of the charity Children and Parents United, Greg Ellis. Her pronouns are y'all and bless your heart. Fox Business Network anchor Dagan McDowell. She knits her old hair extensions into sweaters for the poor. Fox News contributor Kat Tim. And nothing gets in his way except ceilings, door frames, and shower curtain rods. My massive sidekick and the NWA World Television Champion again, Tyrus. I don't know where to start. Tyrus, congrats. Did you win?
Oh, I won. Yeah, I won. Yeah, we won. And still undisputed, reigning, defending. Well, and you won.
Yes.
We're all winning.
Won together.
Cat won. We're all winning.
We're all winning.
We're just a bunch of winners.
We are a bunch of winners.
So let's talk about the losers.
Let's talk about the losers. All right, what do you think of this?
Well, I think it's funny because the one was intended to get a result. Mm-hmm. Attack him, throw stuff on the wall. He's got to do something. Mm-hmm. But President Trump was just too smooth and too slick. I mean, everything, any allegation, accusation that would get a book deal or some half a criminal a chance to run for president in Iowa, they would do it. And they would go at him. But while all that was going on, there was these good deeds happening. Mm-hmm. Our border was secure. Our economy was up. We had jobs. We had opportunities. Now, they're doing the Truman Show with President Biden.
Yeah.
And We've already seen the movie.
Right.
You can't trick us.
That is a great point from the young championship wrestler. Hagen.
Surprising. It's almost an oxymoron, but it just worked out. Right? Yeah, I said that word. Big, right?
I love how this guy Milbank keeps saying that, like, it's not fair because, Trump was trying to overthrow democracy, and all Biden did was, like, screw up the economy or something. It was like, it's such a bizarre way of creating a story.
I think that kind of the media banding together to ensure that one party always wins versus another is kind of anti-democracy.
Right.
Or, you know what's anti-democracy? Communism. And Joe Biden gets like tummy squiggles every time he's like even on a Zoom call with Xi or Putin.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of more of a danger to democracy. But these media grifters are the ones who sold this squinty, cracked garden gnome to the American people. And so they got a butt rash anytime anybody criticizes him.
Right.
Because admitting his failures is admitting their own. And you brought up Hunter Biden. I can't for the life of me figure out. There were like a bunch of New York Times reporters who for a year, all they did was go through Trump's financial documents and his tax returns. They don't want to be on the Hunter Biden beat, learning to work a pole and blow some paint and like get to the bottom of what does it take to get kicked out of the Chateau Marmont?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're right. You know what? And I'm also glad. I'm glad the word you used after blow was paint. Because I think we all felt that it might have been going in
No.
Okay, I will say this.
You from
but if I were a journalist,
I know,
I would love to follow Hunter Biden around. Think of you get to expense.
You're the king of comedy. We got it. We're on the mountain. Don't do it.
But you could expense strip clubs.
Do something.
Yes.
You can't do that in real life.
They'll fix it in post.
Yes. Greg, what did you make of this incredible research, counting adjectives?
Well, first of all, I think I counted 369 adjectives in your monologue.
Yes.
Look, I think, this gallows tonal policing of what's going on it's just indicative of this division. There's no bipartisanship anymore. I mean, just before I came on air a couple of hours ago, I talked with Representative Rodney Creech in Ohio, who's passing he's dropped onto the floor, the first equal shared parenting bill in Ohio, which is following Kentucky and Arkansas. These are the kinds of bills that need to be furthered. Normally, these kinds of bills are co-sponsored by about 15 people. There's 58 co-sponsors on this bill. And those kinds of policies and laws at the state level and the local level, that's what we need to be focusing on, and bipartisanship. And I don't see too much of that from this president, who's a Catholic, he's a father and a family man. If he really cared about families, he'd really get into passing this kind of legislation that really helps children and parents across America.
He can't. There's only a few things he can pass.
Oops.
Here we go.
I did not.
I teed up. You hit the driver.
But you know what? I'm not gonna complete the sentence, Kat. I'm not gonna complete the sentence. See, I've grown up. I've listened to the advice. I am no longer doing fart, poop, or butt jokes.
Oh, we're back there.
So, Kat, what do you make of this? It was a slow news day.
Excellent question, Greg. Look, it's not that I don't trust data. I don't trust someone being like, oh, well, 'cause data.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's I looked at the actual stories that one of the ones that was, they were judging to attribute what the media's tone is about Joe Biden. The headline was, Haiti president assassinated at home, wife wounded. So I don't doubt that there were many negative adjectives used to describe that sequence of events.
No.
But I don't know what it has to do with Joe Biden.
Right. Oh, they actually used that one.
Yeah, there's nothing. So it's, a lot of people who actually know what they're talking about with, data and analysis and technology, they're saying this was bad, so I trust them more than me. This doesn't make sense to anyone who has a human brain. But also, if you look at it, you can just say data, just like how the science people do it.
Right.
They use the science words, and then you're like, oh, they must be smarter than I am, and I just don't understand. The data people do the same thing.
Yes, exactly. So he created the data. He had the idea, fulfilled the idea with the data that he created himself by having somebody count adjectives. And the guy who counted him said, this is a threat
There's
to
so
democracy.
many more ways to be mean to people than an adjective.
Yeah, that is true.
You know, like just the things that they did not cover about Biden that they would have covered about Trump.
Cat, words of violence, though.
Words
know
of
this.
violence.
Words of violence.
That's so I'm told.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.